Superman, the character that started the golden age of comics and with 12 movies under his belt, is undeniably one of the most prominent figures in the world of superheroes and comics. With the character having gone through so many time periods and authors, there have been a lot of significant changes that turned him into the symbol of truth, justice, and hope that most people view him as today. Yet, every author can still play around with this idea and change his character accordingly. Superman Red Sun depicts what would happen if Superman's pod drifted into Russia, while Injustice sees what would happen if Superman had lost Lois Lane and started killing, and there are many more. One of the most praised depictions of Superman comes from the mind of Grant Morrison in All-Star Superman, drawn by Frank Quitely. In this run, Morrison shows Superman in the most flattering light, being a humble, good-natured farm boy who just tries to do good. Throughout the run, we are shown what Superman's priorities are as he completes the 12 labors of Superman while slowly dying from overexposure to the sun's radiation. We are shown that Superman is willing to protect people from physical and emotional danger, even with Lex Luthor, the man who is the cause of his death. During All-Star Superman number 5, Clark follows Luthor around for him to egotistically brag about himself and insult Clark whenever given the chance. However, he still protects Luthor's life and ego. But then there's also this particular page which really shows Superman's heart and how he really believes that every single life matters. We also get to see a bit of how Superman was raised and the importance of Martha and Jonathan Kent. Morrison shows that what makes Superman Superman isn't his powers, but his heart and humanity. Growing up as Clark Kent has allowed him to see Earth as his home and to view humans as his equals. In other words, Clark Kent isn't Superman's secret identity. Clark Kent is Superman. Looking at the cover of All-Star Superman number 1, we see Superman sitting on the clouds above Metropolis, yet his posture isn't Superman-like. He's hunched over. Instead, it resembles what Clark looks like, which shows us that when he's alone, he can drop the Superman act and just be Clark. But there's even more to this cover. Looking at the placement of Clark, we aren't placed below or above him, because he sees us as equals, and placing him up in the clouds shows us that we can be up there with him by doing good just like he does. The importance of his humanity is then echoed in multiple instances, but an obvious one occurs when Superman meets fellow Kryptonians who have the same superpowers as him, but lack his heart and empathy. They viewed humans as lesser and wanted to use Earth to create a new Krypton. They even beat up Superman as he stood in their way. Eventually, they start dying as they were exposed to a radioactive gas, yet Superman still decides to help them. They realize why humans called Clark Superman, as he was willing to help them, even though they disrespected and hurt him. One of the more controversial takes on Superman amongst fans is from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. In this book, the Justice League has been disbanded, and Batman, along with the other superheroes, have been outlawed. However, Superman was given a deal by the president, as he was the strongest one of the bunch, and would help the US government against Soviet Russia without media attention, effectively becoming just a super soldier. Superman is kind of the antagonist in this book, yet he isn't the typical antagonist one would expect. He hasn't gone crazy or turned evil. He's just doing what he's told, and in return, he gets to do what he does best, saving lives. A specific scene shows Superman diverting a special nuclear warhead which would have caused millions of deaths. Superman diverts it to a desert and gets caught up in the explosion. While he tries to get out alive, he talks about how although human lives are saved, the animals and environment has been destroyed. He speaks of humans lowly in the passage, saying how the earth has given them life yet they still seek to destroy it. Miller's Superman sees humans as lesser. We don't get to see much of Clark Kent, and when we do, he seems to just be Superman in disguise. Looking specifically at this frame, we see Clark talking to Bruce, yet Clark is posing like Superman. Unlike Bruce, Clark is shining, with nature embracing him. He's the protector of Earth, and he knows that. With the flowers and butterflies embracing him, we see Clark as higher. Miller even drew us to be looking up at Clark. We are just bone and meat, and he is Superman. The final fight between Batman and Superman, however, shows that Superman still cares about people. During the whole fight, Superman tries to talk Batman out of it. Despite his efforts, Batman continues to wail at him, even using Oliver to shoot a kryptonite arrow at Superman to weaken him. Even then, Superman worries more about Bruce's heart than his own well-being. The cramped fight scene with panels filling the pages is then contrasted by the open frame in which Superman holds Batman in his arms after he has had a heart attack. The sudden emptiness and negative space behind the two figures can be used to show the horror and shock that Superman experiences as his friend dies in his arms. Superman attends Bruce's funeral, even though he's sure to be met with angry grievers, to pay respect to his friend, and when he finds out that Bruce is still alive, his whole expression changes. With a wink, he keeps Bruce's secret safe to ensure his safety. The two comics depict Superman differently right off the bat. In All-Star Superman, the cover of the first issue shows, as previously stated, that Superman is just Clark Kent, and he's equal to us. However, the first time we get to see Clark Kent in The Dark Knight Returns, he's shown to be above us, and Clark Kent is just Superman. The key difference between the two is this disconnect from humanity. While The Dark Knight Returns shows Superman helping people, he does so by fighting a war. He doesn't get the credit, but knowing he has saved lives is enough for him. However, in All-Star Superman, his helpful deeds are much more personal. He doesn't just have to save people from others, but he saves people from themselves, giving them that symbol of hope. Yet, they both still share a lot of similarities. In both comics, Superman cares more about others than his own well-being. In a similar frame, Superman looks up while being injured and instead of acknowledging his pain, acknowledges something he deems more important. In All-Star Superman, he looks up at the moon after being thrown into it and back down into Earth from space and says, "You've broken the moon." While in The Dark Knight Returns, after being shot with a kryptonite arrow and getting beat up, he looks to Bruce with concern and warns him of his heart's condition. Similarly, both depictions of Superman takes the high road. Lex and Batman both blame Superman for a multitude of things. They both disrespect him, yet Superman doesn't really snap back. He instead saves them and their egos, whether it be saving Lex from all the dangers that could have occurred during the jailbreak and pretending like he didn't notice his eyebrow, or not giving his all when he fights Batman and effectively not tearing him to shreds or talking back when he blatantly rips on him. Because, let's be real, we all know how that fight would actually go.
Superman wins.
And finally, Earth is Superman's home. Both of the depictions of Superman have loyalty to Earth over everything, as seen in All-Star Superman when he refers to Earth as his home, or when he sacrifices himself to save the world from the sun, and in The Dark Knight Returns when he thanks Mother Earth for all she has done and how although he wasn't born there, he's been adopted by Earth and swears to honor her. Although these two depictions of Superman are different, they share so many aspects. Even Miller's take on Superman shows how he values others over himself. Because multiple depictions of Superman radiate a similar kind of energy to one another, it makes sense as to why Superman instills those ideas of truth, justice, and hope, even through all the different writers, stories, and time periods. It's hard to stray too far away from those staples of Superman, because those staples are what makes him Superman. And when people try to do so, it doesn't seem to resonate as much with Superman fans, as they feel that the element that makes him super is missing.